The movie Encanto is full of many complex mysteries elaborated by Disney, causing many questions that have arisen from fans. That's why we started to investigate and piece together the clues we found on the internet. With interviews, questions, and answers from the voice actors and directors, we have been able to answer one of the most interesting questions. So get ready, friends, because we will see the best questions of charm finally answered. The doors and rooms are an essential part of the movie. They showed us that magic exists in this family and that each member has their own space within the little house. One particular thing is that each one has designed this room according to their personality, including their door. Each door has the name of who it belongs to, with the exception of Grandma. The question that only the most observant asked is why Grandma's real name, which is Alma, is not on her door. The door clearly says Grandma? So what happened there? Well, friends, this question doesn't require much logic to understand its answer. As the producers mentioned that when Casita was created at the beginning, Grandma's door did say her real name, Alma. But the magic of Casita gives it a certain degree of intelligence, so this name changed as soon as Alma had her grandchildren. Such an intelligent Casita, right? Now we know that to a certain degree, magic makes Casita intelligent.
Casita, help me, drawers!
And if we remember correctly, in this movie they hinted that only those who are of the Madrigal family by blood will be able to have the privilege of these gifts. And I say by blood, because Felix and Agustin are part of the family and yet they don't have powers. So, do you need to have Madrigal blood to be able to get a gift? Our first response without thinking too much would be yes, because that would be the most logical, right? But the reality is that we are completely wrong. You don't need to carry the Madrigal family's blood to get a gift. The thing is that from the beginning, the creators of Encanto were discussing about this. The first idea was that the Madrigal blood was going to be ideal to have the gift, but in the end, it was decided that the gifts would be destined only for the children, or the children within Casita and the Madrigal family. So it doesn't matter if there was an adopted child within the family, that boy or girl would also receive their gift. Well, gentlemen, don't you get a special gift? And the obvious next question is, why didn't Mirabel receive a power?
I brought you the special for being the only Madrigal who doesn't have a gift. I call it our special, not special, since there was no gift for you.
There are several theories across the internet as to why she doesn't have a gift. Some have to do with the past we talked about, where Felix and Agustin are used as examples. But in fact, she did receive a gift for each little house. This question is a bit complicated to answer in such a short video, but I'll do my best. Around the movie, there are many symbols that help us identify the personality of each character. For example, Luisa has figures on her clothes that represent strength. Camilo has chameleons, which obviously have to do with his ability to change. And Bruno has hourglasses. But Mirabel has butterflies, just like the magic candle, so she is the reincarnation of the candle. That's why, when she touched the main door of the house, it transformed and helped everyone recover their gifts. Besides, she is the one who is right in front of the image of the door. But if you're still confused with this answer, I recommend the video we made about this. But since we're talking about rooms, let's go with a somewhat curious question. If the Madrigal's house is spacious and full of rooms, I'm sure there are several areas we couldn't see in the movie. But then, do they have bathrooms in other rooms, or does each character's room have its own bathroom? Seeing that the house is very large and its rooms quite spacious, thanks to magic, the first answer that comes to mind is that they must have their own bathrooms. I mean, Antonio. It has an entire jungle with a super waterfall and little trees where their animals must do their necessities. And maybe magic cleans up all these wastes, right? But this is not the case. Co-director Jared Bush answered this question for us on Twitter. He says that the family only has one bathroom. This bathroom is for the entire house and family members. In addition, he says that in fact they had scenes that showed this small bathroom, but in the end they were removed. Judging by this, I'm sure that more than once the Madrigal family had to line up to get into the bathroom. Unless someone with a huge waterfall and vegetation lets them do their business without causing inconvenience to others. But do you remember we made fun of poor Felix and Agustin who don't have powers at home? Well, in fact, these two guys made people ask the following question. As we know, they only belong to the Madrigal family because they are married to some members of the family. But then, do they have a separate family? And what about other characters from outside? Do they have family inside or outside, from Encanto? In the time they were on screen, Felix or Agustin did not mention anything about whether they had brothers, parents, or any cousin. But the producers said that they do have more family, and in fact, they also live within Encanto. Just like the other characters we see, some have family outside of Encanto. But what we are most interested in knowing is who are these relatives of Felix and Agustin? Agustin who, in fact, it is mentioned that they will be shown in the continuation of this movie that is planned to possibly be a series or maybe a part 2. But now, let's go with a somewhat curious and at the same time interesting question, leaving aside the poor little bathroom they have. Does this question have to do with bedtime? Imagine that you have a gift given by the little house in the Madrigal family. As you may know, some of those can become involuntary from time to time. Just like every time Peppa has a mood swing or certain changes in Camilo's shape. What I'm getting at is the following question. Do the family's powers work while they sleep? How about, and is Peppa having a nightmare or getting angry in her sleep? Do weather changes start to happen without her being aware? Or what about Camilo? Is he changing shapes in real life because of his dreams? Well, in fact, this question is easy to answer since apart from the producers answering it, it has some logic. Since, as we saw from the beginning of the movie, gifts are not something that can be activated or deactivated, they are simply there. So yes, the powers do work while they sleep. In fact, the co-producer of Encanto mentions that the movie was going to have scenes of this, but in the end, they were removed. But in fact, there is a family member with a power that seems like she can control or deactivate it. And I'm referring to Dolores. There were several times when she heard many tiny things, like Luisa's eye, Mariano's poetry, among other things. But there were also several things that she did not hear. Just like in the case when Mirabel spoke with Bruno, or also when she did not hear Grandma, who was worrying that the little house would disappear. So can Dolores use her powers voluntarily? Fortunately, this question was also answered by the co-producer through Twitter, who tells us that Dolores cannot decide when to use her gift. This gift is present in her all the time. But what the co-producer did not answer us is how she did not hear the conversations we mentioned earlier. Some fans think it has to do with her room design, so it may be made with a soundproof barrier. That way she could sleep and rest from all the outside noise. But this theory would be contradicted as she heard Luisa's eye and Mariano's poetry. So my answer to this is that her room is structured in a different way. If you would like to know how, we have a video talking about this room and the others that were not shown in the movie. And what happens if someone decides to leave Encanto? Can they leave and come back? A very interesting question, but unfortunately, this has not yet been proven. Bruno, who chose to isolate himself from the family, said he couldn't leave Encanto when he tried. And this is because the trees surrounding him are too tall.
Why did you leave? But no, did you leave?
It was because the mountains surrounding the charm are super high, and in addition, the director explains to us that the people of Encanto have no reason to leave Encanto, since they have everything they need to live there. He adds that the town is self-sufficient in producing what is necessary. They don't need to be making unions or trade with other places. With everything they have around them, it's enough, and there's no reason to leave Charm. But if it were to happen that someone decided to leave, the return would be almost impossible. This is something good and bad at the same time. Because in this way, they don't have to worry about the conquerors who followed Alma and Pedro out of their village. But the nearly impossible is something that remains to be seen. So it doesn't mean that it's completely impossible. It was discovered that some of Antonio's animals are not native to Colombia. And this opens up the possibility that if these animals could cross and reach Encanto, people could do it too. One thing that made many fans doubt had to do with one of the deleted scenes from the movie, where Bruno, or as he was previously called, Oscar, has a discussion with the grandmother before leaving.
He said, "I'm not gonna stop Grandma. She got angry. And when Grandma got angry, the house got angry, and he told me, I'm leaving, and Grandma said, if you leave this house, you are dead to me."
But did this actually happen? Did he have an argument with Grandma? The producers once again answered the question. They say yes. Bruno had a discussion with the grandmother before leaving, but this was not presented in the movie. This is because they thought it would be better for Bruno's character to confront the grandmother, until he went to defend Mirabel, when he thought he would need more of her help. And another curious fact about Bruno is that many wondered the following: did Bruno's door get all ugly over time? Or was it right after Bruno left? In fact, the answer has nothing to do with any of these questions. The thing is, the door doesn't reflect Bruno's departure, but rather the room started taking on that appearance. Every time Bruno was feeling more and more isolated from the family. Which makes sense, because if we remember, the rooms will form depending on the personality and emotions of each character. But after all the tragedy with the Madrigal's little house was solved, the following question arose: why didn't the mountains fix themselves with magic when the little house was disintegrating? And if you have a keen eye, could you have noticed the following: that the mountains split in two? There was even a scene where Mirabel crossed between them. So what happened to them? Why did they stay like that? And the answer to this is somewhat simple to understand, as it has to do with the purpose and message of the Encanto movie. The mountain had to remain open so that both the Madrigal family and all the inhabitants of Encanto do not forget their past mistakes. All this symbolism of the mountain serves so that they do not make these same mistakes in their future and are more united than ever. Besides, this break that now exists in the mountains, it can serve so that the people of Encanto have the possibility of having new visits from other places, or that they can explore with other nations. Maybe this has to do with the next continuation of Encanto. Some of the fans wondered about some characters. The first ones wanted to know who these three little ones are, or if they have any name.
What are your puddings? What can each one do? And that's why you shouldn't drink coffee.
And in fact, if we read the entire script of the movie, we can know their real names. This guy's name is Pumped Juancho, who is a coffee addict and was initially going to be named Huicho. Pumped Juancho, what a strange name. Here we have little Alejandra and Cecilia. All these kids are references to people who helped in the movie. For example, Alejandra is named after the guide Alejandra Espinosa, who took the Encanto filmmakers around Colombia. Juancho, or previously named Huicho, is a nod to Jose Huicho Velázquez, the development artist behind Mirabel's beautiful stitched dress. But while watching the movie, if you noticed the brunette woman in a white blouse and yellow skirt, you might have wondered who is she or what is her name. Similarly, her name appears in the scripts. And here I have the answer for you. Woman. Her name is Lily, and she is also a reference to a real-life girl. Since they put her there due to their collaboration and friendship with Edna Liliana.
Was born in Colombia. My family is from the Pacific Coast. Colombia, a country with a region that has a majority black population, large of the Spanish diaspora. Already.
That without her, they couldn't have made this great film. Why didn't Dolores' prophecy come true? In one scene, Bruno had a vision of Dolores. In this, Bruno saw the man of his dreams from Dolores. But he revealed some information that was not entirely pleasant, as Bruno told her that her beloved was out of her reach. And besides, engaged to someone else.
He gave me an impossible love, agreed upon in the end, in ties with another.
But we have to admit that Bruno wasn't so wrong, since the song doesn't say that Dolores' love interest was married, but rather he was interested in someone else. This doesn't imply that Dolores and her beloved wouldn't be together. What this means is that their relationship would be somewhat difficult to understand, as they would go through several obstacles between them. In the movie, it seemed like Mariano was the one who was in love with Dolores from the start, but in reality, it was Dolores who heard Mariano's poetry, who hadn't revealed it to anyone else. For this reason, when they confessed, their feelings connected instantly. Moreover, Bruno's vision didn't assure that Dolores was going to be completely alone, apart from the fact that his vision was somewhat blurry with Mirabel's. Perhaps because of this, he also couldn't have given a 100% clear answer with Dolores. But then, does Mirabel remember Bruno? Since the movie starts, Bruno is hardly mentioned. In fact, they say it in the song.
My Uncle Bruno? We don't talk about Bruno?
But since he left 10 years ago, it seems almost impossible that Mirabel would have any memory of Bruno. Because if we start doing the math, Mirabel was only 5 years old at that time. So unless she had an excellent memory, she might remember something. Just like Camilo, who is the same age as Mirabel was when Bruno left 5 years old. And what Camilo describes about Bruno is not entirely true.
Do they run fast behind when they hear your name? There's no turning back.
What he says in his song are only rumors that he has been hearing around the family and the town of Encanto. Having gifts is already a great responsibility, but when do problems start to arise with these gifts? Is it from the beginning or after a while? Logically, when we are not familiar with something, certain inconveniences will arise. This is what happened with the boys' gifts. At the beginning, they are not so stable, and that is already a small problem as they have to learn to control them. Besides, Grandma tells them that they are going to find a good purpose for the house.
I am Dawn. They were warming you up in the chair.
Thank you, Tonito, and soon we will find out how to take advantage of the blessing you received.
But on the other hand, when they already have them dominated, another problem arises. As they become a great responsibility, full of pressure from Grandma. At this point, they no longer see the boys as their gift or as a present, but rather as a curse. And finally, a somewhat curious question, but one that in fact is often asked to the producers of Encanto. And what about Mirabel's height? How tall is she? For her age, Mirabel, who is 15 years old, has an average height as she is 1 meter and 57 centimeters tall. She might even be taller than some of you. Alright friends, if you have any other questions about Encanto, don't forget to leave them in the comments.